For this one is going to be 4.6. I can solve equations with rational coefficients. And we're just going to review what rational numbers are and what coefficients are first. So rational means it can be written as a fraction. So all of our coefficients will be decimals that end or fractions. And then coefficients are the numbers in front of the variable. So the number in front of a variable. So for our first example, let's do 4 equals 0.5 times x. So we already practiced equations like this. This is a multiplication equation. The only difference here is we have a decimal. So it's going to be the exact same process. We'll draw the line on the equal sign. What's the opposite of multiplying by 0.5? It'd be dividing by 0.5. So I do that on both sides. 0.5 divided by 0.5 is 1, so I have 1x equals, and then 4 divided by 0.5 is 8. And I should check my work. So I'll rewrite the equation, but instead of an x, I'm going to write an 8. Then I'll see if it's actually equal. 0.5 times 8 is 4, so we did it correctly. For the next one, let's do negative 2.8 times p equals 4.2. I'll draw my line down the equal sign. And when I have a negative 2.8 next to a p, that means I'm multiplying. So the opposite of multiplying is going to be dividing. So I'm going to divide by negative 2.8 on each side. So negative 2.8 divided by negative 2.8 is 1. So I have 1p equals 4.2 divided by 2.8 is 1.5. So it's going to be negative 1.5. Since I have the p alone, I'm finished. I'm going to plug this back in for p to check. So negative 2.8 times negative 1.5, does that equal 4.2? I'll type it into my calculator, and a negative times a negative is a positive. So we did that one correctly. For the third one, let's do 3/4 times x equals 5/7. So we're multiplying, so we want to do the opposite and divide. When we divide fractions, we flip and multiply. So I'm going to just flip and multiply right away. And then I'm going to multiply. So I can cross reduce or cross cancel here. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 3 divided by 3 is 1. So I cross reduced this way and this way. I'm left over with 1x. Then I'll multiply these fractions. 5 times 4 is 20. 7 times 3 is 21. Then I would check and see if I can reduce, and I can't reduce that, but I'll check my work. So I'll plug this back in for x. So I have 3/4 times 20 divided by 21. 4 goes in here one time and in here 5 times. 3 goes in here one time and in here 7 times. So I'm left over with 5/7, which is what I needed to get. Our next one will be 2/5 times x equals 7/15. Again, we're dividing, but when I divide fractions, I flip and multiply. So I'm going to flip and multiply right away. And then I'll see if I can cross cancel or cross reduce. So I'll look this way, and 5 will go into the 5 one time and the 5 one time. 2 will go into this 2 one time and in this 2 one time. So I'm left over with 1x. 5 will go in here one time and in here 3 times. 7 times 1 is 7. 3 times 2 is 6. I can't reduce this, but I could turn it into a mixed number and say 1 1/6. Then I'll check my work. So I have 2/5 times x. X is 7/6. Does that equal 7/15? I can cross reduce this way because 2 will go in here one time and in here 3 times. 1 times 7 is 7. 5 times 3 is 15. So we got it. Uh-oh. This should be a 15. We got that one right too. Okay, the fifth one, we're going to do negative 7/8 times x equals 12. Draw my line. The opposite of multiplying by 7/8 is dividing by 7/8. But when I divide fractions, I flip and multiply. So I'm going to divide both sides by, or multiply both sides by 8/7. But I want to get rid of the negative as well. So I'm going to multiply by negative 8/7 because a negative times a negative is a positive, so that will leave me with a positive x on the left side. So I'll see where I can cross cancel. 8 goes in here one time and in here one time. 7 will go into both of these. 7 will go in here one time and in here one time. So I'm left over with 1x equals, I need to turn this 12 into a fraction. 12 times negative 8 is negative 96. 1 times 7 is 7. I can leave my answer like that, or I can turn it into a mixed number. 7 will go into 96 13 times with 5 left over. So either of these two would work for our solution. The last one says Sam answered 4 of the questions on his quiz correctly. If Sam answered 16 questions correctly, how many questions were on his quiz? So first thing we always do when we do a story problem is we define our variable. So I'm going to let Q equal the number of questions on the quiz, number of total questions, and of means I'm going to multiply. So I'm going to do 4/5 of means multiply by the total number of questions was 16 questions. So first I define my variable, then I write my equation. Now I can solve my equation. I have 4/5 times x. The opposite of multiplying by 4/5 is dividing. When I divide fractions, I flip and multiply, so I'll multiply by 5/4. These will cross cancel, so I'll get 1q. I'll turn this into a fraction. I can cross cancel this way. 4 will go in here one time and in here 4 times. 4 times 5 is 20. So there were 20 questions on this quiz.